Thank you. I think changing slide has a little delay. So, okay, let's start. Hello, my name is Mohammad Reza Ismaili. I'm medical doctor and information technology engineer. Thank you for inviting me to DigiHealth Day 2023. Today, I'll talk about our recent work on colonoscopy image using AI. Deep learning is a subfield of machine learning and AI that focuses on artificial neural networks, particularly deep neural networks, to model and solve complex problems. One of the most intriguing advancements brought by deep learning and neural networks is the field of computer vision. Self-driving cars, medical image analysis, facial recognition systems, energy plant identification, and object detection are just a few breakthrough examples in the field. As you know, recently, artificial intelligence has made significant strides in the field of medical image processing. AI technologies are being used to assist healthcare professionals in various aspects of the image processing, such as brain MRIs, lung CT scans, or endoscopy procedure images. These advancements aim to improve accuracy, efficiency, and patient outcomes. Colonoscopy is the gold standard for detection and treatment of colorectal neoplastic lesions and is the cornerstone examination for colorectal cancer screening. One key application of AI is in colonoscopy images by developing computer-aided detection systems. These systems analyze image feeds from the colonoscope to identify potential abnormalities that might be missed by the human eye. Most of AI methods used in colonoscopy target identifying or characterizing cancer precursors called polyps. The benefit of colonoscopy for colorectal cancer prevention depends on the adenoma detection rate. The adenoma detection rate should reflect the adenoma prevalence rate, which is estimated to be higher than 50% in the screening age population. However, the adenoma detection rate by colonoscopies varies from 7 to 53%. It's estimated that every 1% increase in adenoma detection rate lowers the risk of interval colorectal cancer by 3 to 6%. Approximately 26% of neoplastic diminutive polyps were missed in single colonoscopy. Two factors are considered to affect this adenoma detection rate. One is blind spots and the other is human error. The first factor could be solved by using a wide-angle scope or distal attachments, but human error is not easy to overcome. Endoscopic imaging has multifactorial dependencies, including large operator dependencies, scope-related issues, and underlying scene dynamics. As a solution to address human errors, artificial intelligence has been attracting attention. In this work, we used a new type of neural network architecture called masked region-based convolutional neural networks, maskRCNN for short, to detect colon polyps in colonoscopy images and help to early diagnosis, intervention, and treatment planning, thereby reducing the risk of colorectal cancer. So why maskRCNN? maskRCNN is a deep learning model for instant segmentation, which combines object detection and image segmentation. Some of its advantages include high accuracy. It's known for its accuracy in instant segmentation tasks. It can precisely identify and segment objects in an image. It uses an proposal region network to generate region proposals, allowing it to focus on potential object regions and thus improving efficiency. In addition to object detection, It also predicts pixel-level masks for each object instance, enabling fine-grained segmentation. Mask RCNN can be used with various backbone networks like ResNet and RedNet, and more, providing flexibility in choosing the base architecture. Also, pre-trained models are available for Mask RCNN, making it easier to use for various tasks and reducing training time by using transfer learning. There are open source implementations available, making it accessible for researchers and developers. And last but not least, Mask RCNN is among the state-of-the-art models for instance segmentation tasks today. Here, we will take a look at Mask RCNN architecture and in the process highlight some key sub-problems in computer vision as well. Mask RCNN works toward the problem of instance segmentation, the process of detecting and delineating each distinct object of interest in an image. Instance segmentation is a combination of two sub-problems. The first is object detection, and this is the problem of finding and classifying a variable number of objects in an image. The second part of instance segmentation is semantic segmentation. Semantic segmentation is the understanding of an image at the pixel level. That is, we want to assign an object class to each pixel in the image. In this output image of our model, apart from recognizing the column polyps, our model also delineated the boundaries of it. By using object detection and semantic segmentation together, we get instance segmentation. Here, the bounding box is created from object detection, and the shaded masks are the output of semantic segmentation. Now that we have a high-level intuition of instance segmentation, we'll briefly take a look at the architecture behind Mask RCNN. Since there are two phases, we have two parts. For object detection, it uses an architecture similar to faster RCNN. For semantic segmentation, it uses fully convolutional networks. Mask RCNN is an extension over the faster RCNN and consists of three primary components, which are the backbone, the region proposal network, and region of interest align. Backbone is a feature pyramid deep neural network, which can extract multi-level image features. Here, the convolutional neural network used as a backbone for our model was ResNet 50, which consists of 48 convolution layers and one max pool layer, as well as one average pool layer. It also had 3.8 times 109 floating point operations. The region proposal network worked as a sliding window to scan the input image and detect the polyp regions. The region of interest align then examines the region of interest obtained from the region proposal network and extends the feature maps from the backbone at various locations. The region of interest align is responsible for formation of the precise segmentation masks on the output image. The dataset of images in this project was provided by our GI specialist. It contained more than 100,000 anonymous colonoscopy images, of which 806 were colon polyps. Polyps were annotated on this image by using Label Me software. The entire images were divided randomly by 7:1 ratio to train, test, and evaluate the deep learning model. To improve results, we used data augmentation on image dataset, a process of synthetically generating additional training examples by using random image transformations, including rotation and mirroring of the input image during the training process. Doing so forces the model to learn to become invariant to this transformation. Plus, we use transfer learning on COCO dataset to train our final model more efficient. We use ResNet-50 network for the backbone of the mask-RCNN model at Superior. The train and test process performed on 564 and 161 images, respectively, by RTX 3080 Ti GPU. After that, we evaluated the model by remaining 81 polyp images, in which 73 of 81 polyps were detected correctly. In 5 cases, the model misdiagnosed normal mucus as a polyp lesion, and in 8 cases, the model didn't detect the polyp in the images. Our model final performance results were 83.9% accuracy, 93.58% precision, 90.12% sensitivity, and 91.82% F1 score. F1 score is defined as a harmonic mean of precision and recall. One of the most interesting work done in 2023 by Krenzer and colleagues in Germany. They used YOLO version 5 to localize and identify polyps in real time. The model trained on dataset with over 500,000 annotated images and achieved better results in speed and accuracy compared to other systems mentioned in this literature, by F1 score of 90.24% on CDC Video Clinic DB benchmark. In 2020, Jean and colleagues in Seoul National University developed convolutional neural networks to distinguish adenomatous and hyperplastic diminutive polyps. They trained the model on 2,150 images and tested on 300 images. Their final model accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity were 86.7%, 83.3%, and 91.7% respectively. In Japan, another great work was done in 2020. Ozawa and colleagues used a deep convolutional neural network architecture called single-shot multi-detector for the detection and classification of colorectal polyps. They trained the convolutional neural network using 20,431 images and subsequently tested the performance on the trained convolutional neural network in 7,077 colonoscopy images. The trained model detected colorectal polyps with a sensitivity of 92% and positive predictive value of 86. In 2018, Urban and colleagues at University of California used VGG16, VGG19, and ResNet-50 convolutional neural network architecture with YOLO technique and designed deep convolutional neural networks to localize and identify polyps in real time. The model trained on 8,641 images and tested on 1,330 images and 11 videos. The best accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity of their model was 96, 90, and 95.2%. Another work was done in 2018 by Mizawa and colleagues in Japan. They developed artificial intelligence assisted polyp detection model for colonoscopy video and output the probability of colorectal polyp presentation in each video frames. The model architecture was based on convolutional 3-dimensional network, which is designed for spatiotemporal data like video datasets. The train and test dataset were 411 and 135 colonoscopy video clips. Accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity of their model were 76, 90, and 63%. None of the models built in these studies can detect polyps boundaries in pixel level and do instant segmentation to highlight them precisely in colonoscopy images. One of the related work were done in 2019 by Agder and colleagues in Norway. They answered the question in polyp detection and segmentation using mask-R-CNN. Does a deeper feature extractor convolutional neural network always perform better? In this paper, they adopted and evaluated mask-R-CNN with 3 convolutional neural network feature extractors, ResNet-50, ResNet-101, and Inception ResNet version 2 for polyp detection and segmentation. Although a deeper network is essential for high performance, they concluded that ResNet-50 was able to outperform deeper convolutional neural networks such as ResNet-101 and ResNet Inception version 2 when a limited amount of training data is available. And thus, they validated our decision to choose ResNet-50 for our mask-R-CNN model instead of deeper convolutional neural networks. As other works in AI and machine learning, we also face data and hardware limitations. We hope by using new techniques like generative AI and better hardware in future, we can overcome these limitations and build practical real-time model for polyp detection and segmentation to assist our GI specialists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Thank you so much. That was a very clear presentation. Let me first ask the audience in the room, and then Norbert, will you stand by to ask the question that you put in the chat in a moment? But in the room first, is there anybody who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Professor Minster, I think I need to just ask you.
Thank you very much for interesting report, but the question is, your result was received on the training sample or exam sample? It's a very important thing. I don't understand. It's really live or only deep learning? Thank you very much.
We split the dataset in 3 parts. Part 1 and part 2 for train and tests used for training the model, and part 3 validation sets never used for training model, and the final model results tested on this section, the validation sets, and that's the result.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me turn to Norbert, who's online and who had posted a question in the chat. And then I saw your hand raised, sir. You'll be the third and final question. But Norbert, are you there still? And can you come off mute and put your question verbally?
Sorry, but the question in the chat is not from me. It's from Nisnap.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misread it.
Okay.
So would that person who's that? I don't know who it is, but would you like to come off mute? Because your question quickly appears in the chat window and disappears. So we need to hear it from you by voice.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry for misreading.
Actually, I want to ask you a small question about the use of evaluation metric, because I see a lot of evaluation metric in each of these experiments or research. So I wanted to ask which one is the best suited evaluation metric to analyze the efficiency of the deep learning network.
I think it depends on the work. In some works, especially in video, as we've seen in some of the works, they use F1 score, but the normally we use accuracy and precision. So by the results, when we calculate true positive, true negative, and so on, we can calculate any metrics we want. And based on the essence of the work, some of them may be important in some project, and some of them may be important in other projects. I can highlight and take one of the metrics as an important one.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I have a question. My question is actually related to the previous question from our room, namely, so you mentioned that you have 100,000 anonymized images, and then you split them into training, test, and validation set.
Yes.
So how do you make sure that the images from the same patient do not end up split between the training set and the validation set? Because then if you do validation on images from a patient, those images had been in the training set before, then there is no statistical independence of the two sets, obviously. And then
Yes.
your result will be strongly biased. Or strongly
Image obtained from the video feed. So every image is in different frames from the video input. And we can say it may be have an image from same patient, but because of the because they obtained from the video inputs and subsequent frames, they differ even a little bit from each other, and not the same, also if they obtain from the same patient.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry that we're out of time, but I'd like to thank you for keeping to time and for giving us a very clear and interesting presentation. So thank you very much. Would you mind stopping sharing your screen?
Sure.
If you could do that, and then Norbert, if you could do the reverse and in a moment start sharing your screen, and I'd like to welcome you as our next speaker on behalf of, well, I think it may be the home team here. I'm not quite sure how homely you are compared to where we are in on this campus, but you're going to be telling us about anonymization, a kind of holy grail challenge
Yes.
for health data. So I look forward to hearing your talk. Please go ahead. Your screen is sharing very nicely. Just go.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I obviously came from the Deggendorf Institute of Technology. And yeah, my name is Norbert Lichtenau. I'm a health scientist at the health campus in Bad Kötzting, which belongs to the DIT. I'm delighted to be here today to tell you about our work in the EasyAnon project. In this project, we are dealing with the necessary anonymization of personal health data prior to a possible secondary use. For this purpose, we have prepared a scoping review on possible barriers and obstacles, as well as supporting and enabling factors, which I want to show you now. First, a short introduction. What is EasyAnon? What is it? One of the main intention of EasyAnon is to anonymize personal data for further use and utilization. In the project, we are not only interested in health data, but also in personal data from other areas such as research institutions, authorities, or even companies. After an automatic processing of the metadata from our software, a recommender system will further evaluate the data and suggest an appropriate anonymization method. After this anonymization, a two-stage audit process will be used to check the anonymization. In the first step, an automatic audit is carried out by the system, and afterwards, experts assess the anonymization in a crowdsourced peer review process before the open data can be published. 5 institutions have joined the forces to achieve this goal, and from the Deggendorf Institute of Technology, the Technology Campus in Grafenau and Vilshofen are involved, and also the Health Campus in Bad Kötzting. And additional, we have scientific partners at the University of Augsburg and 3 companies which are familiar with this topic. The Health Campus in Bad Kötzting and my working area are responsible for the empirical research in the project, and we are primarily concerned with the motivation, willingness, and acceptance of such an anonymization tool. And for this purpose, we will combine an interview survey and a questionnaire survey in a mixed methods approach to determine the willingness and special needs of the involved stakeholders and to generate recommendations and guidelines for implementation. So when you are looking at the background and motivation to our project, you found out that open data is being discussed intensively in many different disciplines. Additional, the possibilities for automatically storing and analyzing data have expanded enormously in recent years, including attention to ethical and legal standards such as those of the GDPR. In healthcare sector, most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed the enormous challenges in data exchange internationally and nationally. However, there is a consensus that open data can improve the diagnosis and prognosis of diseases, like the colleague before explained us, and lead to new approaches in prevention, especially in the field of rare or genetic diseases. And a fundamental key element in medical research is thereby the linking of data, for example, a person's diagnosis and the lifestyle. And this linkage is highly problematic when you look at ethical and legal guidelines. But open data is not only being expanded in the healthcare sector. Corresponding initiatives are also in research sectors such as within the European Open Science Cloud in order to promote data accessibility and data exchange. There is also a discussion to open data with public authorities in order to meet the increased participation needs of citizens and to improve specific services and processes. The continued use of data is also seen as a key to further industrial and economic development in the corporate sector. Here is also a clear need of appropriate data processing tools and instruments. So in this background, we are conducted a systematic literature search to identify general barriers and supporting factors in the provision of personal data as open data. We conducted a sensitive search by the search strategy of Northout and Hertz. And this search included databases from every sector, so economic public databases, as well as databases from the field of IT and computer science, and of course, databases from the health sector. In total, almost 1,200 studies were found, which were analyzed for relevance in a selection process. And in the end, 55 studies were included in the results. So what are the barriers and hurdles? A total of 13 categories were identified in the area of barriers and hurdles. Most barriers were seen in the area of ELSI, ethical, legal, social implications, followed by personal barriers, barriers in the area of data structure and technology, as well as in the area of data misuse and consent procedures. In detail, the evaluation for ethical, legal, and social implications is difficult with mentioning and 27 studies. Secondary use raises many ethical and legal questions, such as unethical follow-up projects or who actually owns the data. Personal barriers are seen in a lack of human resources and skills. A lack of awareness and data-oriented culture is also evident in institutions, especially among managers. The quality of the data is also often considered to be poor because insufficient attention during collection is described. This leads to a very heterogeneous data structure, resulting in poor interoperability. Other technical barriers are seen in many different systems and infrastructures. Many system architectures are designed as closed systems, especially in the healthcare sector. There is also a lack of technical solutions and support for all data types. There are also many concerns and fears about data misuse. No one can predict for what purposes data will be used in the future, and there are fears that information will be misunderstood or that the relevant people will not fulfill confidentiality obligations. In the area of consent and information, explicit consent for further purposes is the main barrier. Consent and revocation options require ongoing contact between the data donor and the data administrator, which is considered to be organizationally difficult. Consent procedures are also described as complicated and misleading. Other hurdles include the fear of stigmatizations and discrimination, especially in the case of re-identification or digital profiling, which possible financial, professional, and personal discrimination. Institutional barriers are described with long-lasting processes for the introduction of new technical systems. Resistance to the transformation of organizations was also described, as well as a lack of support and interest from managers. Economic barriers were described as the ongoing investment required for technological change, high costs for external services, and a threat to the company's own business model when data is released. Data protection himself is seen as a hurdle, as it can also limit the analysis potential of the data. Commercial interests are also considered undesirable, and there are fears of data being sold. A lack of trust in collaborations between government and commercial stakeholders is also named as a barrier. Very different levels of trust in data administrators were described, with the healthcare system still being considered the most trustworthy. Inadequate communication and transparency regarding data exchange and data use are also seen as barriers. And now to the enabling aspects. 14 categories could be subsumed in the area of supporting and enabling factors. The most important supporting factor were the description of positive outcomes and possible benefits. Also, ELSI aspects, the technical infrastructure, data access, further education and training, personal aspects, and data structure are most described as helpful. The most important enabling factor to anonymize personal data into open data is the presentation of potential benefits and improvements. For example, in the healthcare provision can be improved, new services, products, and processes can be created, e.g. medical devices or new medicines. Financial savings through improved efficiency and lower operating costs were also described, as well as possible increase in reputations, especially in the area of research. In the area of ELSI, clear legal regulations are essential, as well as an ethical review system and the consideration of possible stigmatization and discrimination at all data process levels. In the area of technical infrastructure, maximum security and resilience of the systems are required, as well as a high level of usability and individual tools and platforms for specific needs. Data access must be regulated and planned and should enable access controls. Data usage contracts could be helpful here. Training and further education of users is considered essential, and special needs must be addressed individually. Also, awareness of open data and evaluate the relevance of data should be increased. Comprehensive support in the process is also regarded as elementary in personal aspects, although the awareness of managers to this process. Further supporting factors were seen in data structure, especially in the application of the FAIR principles and the consideration of ethical and legal aspects in the development of data sets. Trust should be strengthened at the data collection, as well as through the use of strict security measures and access controls. Consent procedures need to be adapted and data management policies should be implemented. Collaboration is considered beneficial and important. The issue cannot be tackled alone. Regular exchanges about goals and needs are considered important here. Communication must take place at all levels and address the requirements and needs of users and every stakeholders. The general pressure for efficiency and saving costs in many sectors, as well as available resources, are considered beneficial in the area of economic aspects. Institutional aspects, including the development and introduction of a structured data management plan and the promotion of an agile organizational culture. In addition, the participation of all involved actors in the entire process, as well as platforms that empower users in the field of data preparation, are beneficial. To summarize, in the evaluation of 55 studies, many challenges and supporting factors were presented very similarly across all sectors. Health data in particular needs special requirements, especially with regard to possible linking. New laws are currently being coordinated in Germany, especially the Health Data Utilization Act, taking into account the requirements of the European Health Data Space. The development of open data can only be sustainable and successful if the benefits are clearly evident and the corresponding additional costs are as low as possible. If you would like more detailed information, please refer to the forthcoming publication of the scoping review. Here are the project and contact details. Thank you very much for your attention.
Round of applause from everyone, please. Well, I really enjoyed that presentation, and I will absolutely be heading for your review when it's published. Let me first ask if in the room there are any questions. So can I ask you myself, do you feel that as part of your analysis of both the downside and the good side, the barriers and the success factors, you would be able to close the paper with some recommendations to the field? Do you think there are some emerging good practices that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think there are existing some best practice parts, and this could be a first step for recommendations to see what have some institutions, some corporations, how did they anonymize this material and how provide support the stakeholders to analyze this data. And there's a lot of recommendations which you can read in the scoping review, but there are existing some best practice. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now I can see from the screen that Chinvendu, if I'm pronouncing your name right, has raised a hand. That presumably means you have a question.
Please. Yeah.
Please come off mute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Norbert for your presentation. That was quite informative and impressive. And I think it's going to be a milestone achievement in public health research. But my question is, what measures have you put in place to ensure that users, they trust the software and that privacy and confidentiality are maintained?
Yeah, I think the privacy design approach is very important in this case. So you have to involve in the creation of data sets and to use a software, you have involved as much stakeholders and users as possible. And you have to prepare the software which high usability means that you include some ethical and legal standards and questions that the user can make an opinion of the data sets. Is it crucial or is it not as much crucial to need for the formulated needs? And I think there should be an interdisciplinary approach in the development of softwares, and we are in the Easy Anon project multidisciplinary. So I hope we can satisfy these needs. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. So Norbert, thank you for a very interesting presentation, nicely delivered as well. Can I ask you to stop sharing your screen? And I'm going to guess that Zaid is online and ready to take over as our next presenter. So I need to just check. Zaid, are you there? Or is it maybe another member of that team from the University of Bradford?
Hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Zaid, and I'll be representing the team from Bradford University, as you're aware.
Perfect.
I'm quite, yes.
Are you able to share your screen from where you are?
Yes, please.
Great, thank you. So we look forward to hearing your talk. I know that during the COVID pandemic, thank you, if you are able to pop it in presentation mode, that would be even better. Yep, it's looking nice and clear. I think we look forward to hearing about this. This was definitely a very challenging dilemma during the COVID pandemic. What should be the right way to manage patient care in critical situations? So thank you for your presentation. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. A warm welcome to everyone again. I'm quite delighted to be part of this global digital health community. I'll be speaking on behalf of myself and Dr. Mohamed Faisal and Professor Rebecca Randall, a professor of digital health technology at the University of Bradford. And we work from the University of Bradford, as well as we've got our lab at the Wolfson Center for Health Research in Bradford as well. So I'll give a brief introduction into why this topic. We're all aware of what happened during the COVID pandemic, and we know even prior to COVID, the ICU has always been a challenging environment. And then suddenly to be overwhelmed by this number of people patients coming for treatments, we need to make decisions, and decision making is the most critical part of healthcare systems. So I will try and delve into this aspect of clinical decision support in ICU during COVID. A lot has been said today around clinical decision support. So some of the things I'll be saying will be looked at from a different angle, because we usually work from a methodology called realist evaluation, which is interested in what health intervention has worked and why has it worked for a particular group of people. And if it is done that for them, then can lessons be learned so that others can benefit from it. So during the outfit of COVID, a lot of technology was adopted, and one of the most impactful technology was the use of clinical decision support systems at the ICU and the use of electronic patient records. We found out, so it was observed that there was little research into the role of clinical decision support system within the ICU, not within the hospital, within the ICU in specific. And we felt this would be very important, this would be a very impactful research. So the specific objective of the research was to categorize the type of clinical decision support systems that were used and to provide a general overview of how they were used and evaluate the integration with clinical decisions with EPR, electronic patient records. So secondary data was collected through scoping review. You might be wondering why scoping review, not the traditional systematic review, because this was an emerging topic, an emerging phenomena. So we need to find out what topics, what literature was out there about this, and then to identify gaps. So we took a step-by-step approach, and one of the approaches is consultation. So we conducted pilot interviews with 7 stakeholders within the NHS that works with the ICU in Yorkshire, because we were based in Yorkshire. Bradford is in Yorkshire, northern part of England. So we talked to some of our stakeholders who were senior clinical nursing information officers. Some of them are chief technical officers for the ICU, and some were actually CEOs of some NHS trust. During the process, we were able to bring up some questions, which were our objectives from this discussion. And then we went into the databases and registrars for medical articles. 2,910 articles came up, but some of them were found to be duplicates. And among the duplicates, we worked on some of the abstracts and the titles. So we excluded 977. And then of the 79 that was considered eligible for the research, only 8 could make it, because 71 of them actually talk about the use of clinical decision support system, but not within the ICU. We were primarily interested in the ICU. So from this article selected, the 8, the UK came top. So 2 researches were conducted in the UK looking at the use of clinical decision support system at the ICU. And then we have journal articles from Finland, Hong Kong, Iran, Italy, South Korea, and one from the USA. Back to the topic, we've talked a lot about clinical decision support systems today. It's just about making the right decision. We are overwhelmed with data now. Every gadget, traditional and non-traditional methods are all producing data. So clinical decision support systems are just tools that help us to make better informed decisions for evidence-based medicine. And they could be categorized into 5 based on the mode of advice they provide, their style of communication, and then the core decision-making process and how they interact with human, as well as underlying motivations or model for giving advice. So in terms of active architecture, we found out that the evolution of clinical decision support systems have changed over time, right from when it was paper clinical decision support system to when we now use a lot of IT software. And some organizations still use a mix. So they use paper as well as digital CDSS. And this can make them to be categorized into standalone, which evolved around 1959. Then the integrated systems that are integrated with other hospital systems that came into place in 1967, and the standard-based systems, and the current service-based models. And all these systems, they use different convention of language, of standard, agreed standards to communicate. We've got the HL7 standards, which is the language of standard adopted worldwide for health service, health information systems to communicate. So we find out that a lot of these clinical decision systems actually use some of these different standards. And HL7 info button was used to access online resources. HL7 Aden syntax was used to communicate as a cloud-based protocol. Then there was HL7 Fashion MR, which was for the virtual medical records, and HL7 CDA, which was more around clinical document architecture. Like every system, we all know there are merits and demerits. So the clinical decision support systems in use actually have their own strengths and weaknesses as well. I mean, we all know they can improve data entry, they can be used for data review, for managing medication process. I mean, even our pharmacists now use them for computerized physician order entry, and then the alert system, which is a very key factor around them. They are able to predict, they are able to, our clinical decision support systems are able to look at trends and patterns and be able to warn us. So they can send alerts to doctors if a particular patient condition is worsening. They are able to inform us. But again, as good as all these are, they've got their weaknesses, they've got their risk, and we can categorize the benefits into major factors around admin functions, cost effectiveness, and that's usually around some clinical decision support systems have been developed now around the world that can inform healthcare service providers of cheaper alternatives of drugs that they can use. They can even, especially in the US from our study, provide and inform the healthcare service support organization of assistance of cheaper insurance options. So they've greatly enhanced our clinical management. They've been used in diagnostic support for imaging, for laboratory, for pathology, and they've enhanced patient safety greatly. So they've reduced workload. So in terms of making decisions, our healthcare workers now think less. We might see that as an advantage or a disadvantage. Is quite subjective from our discussions with stakeholders in the healthcare sector, but they've reduced test duplication. So even if we are running a modeling, our clinical decision support system have commanded because they've helped us to make decisions faster. But the risks now are very glaring. There is alert fatigue, especially around the warning systems. Some healthcare workers, some doctors, some physiotherapists in the ICU feel our decision support systems are sending too much alerts to them, and that some of these alerts are inappropriate. Then there is the issue of data. As we all know, it's just about computer systems about what we feed in and what comes out. So it's garbage in, garbage out. If there are errors into the data that is supplied, probably due to the fact that staff don't have adequate training, or they probably, we know sometimes because it's a repetitive process from our discussion, staff sometimes copy and paste, so the data quality might not be good enough. And again, like every system, there is issue of integration and interoperability. Now that clinical decision support systems are being integrated with electronic patient records, there are issues around data integration. There might be differences in data standard. There might even be differences in the architecture or the software compatibility. Then it comes to the implementation cost. So funding, from what we know in the UK and which we believe is happening around the world, is reducing for healthcare projects, and sourcing for that is a big reason. Is a big factor now. We have to go to the hospital boss to justify why we need so much money to implement a new system. And the biggest one is ethics and data security. So we've heard of different instances where, we've got hackers trying to hijack data from health systems. And then we've got instances where perhaps by error of omission or commission, healthcare workers have made mistakes and they've allowed patient data to fall into the wrong hands. Well, so the result we came up with was that CDSS are used as evidence-based tools for early mortality prediction in the ICU. They can be used for several to predict the risk of severity of a patient condition. They are used for triage on admission and other operative uses. So they can be used, especially during COVID. A lot of hospitals use them. The frontline operators use them to make informed decisions. So when there are a lot of high calls into the emergency department, for example, they are used to rank the necessary calls. And then, like I said, they permitted clinical and non-clinical staff to be able to prioritize calls that in terms of attending to patients. So as we all aspire to have patient-centered decision-making, we want patients to be more involved in their healthcare based on evidence. It has been established that in the past 20 years now, there are more projects in hospital environments where we combine electronic health records or electronic patient record with clinical decision support systems. And there are three major barriers to the integration of clinical decision support systems and electronic patient record. It is mainly about individual trust. There is a bias from the public in doing that. They don't trust the software service providers, and there are usability concern in terms of context of practice, so which is still around trust as well. But we believe there is a future, there is hope, and there will be more need for clinical decision support systems in the ICU because it's going to help around patient care, it's going to help around patient safety. We are more data-driven in our decision-making now, and there are a lot of technological advancement that will support, so it can be integrated with more different platforms. So in a nutshell, clinical decision support systems, they will drive innovation because they will be used in modeling. They will be integrated with mobile apps, wearable devices. There are examples where they are already integrated with such devices, and it's helped us in monitoring patients even remotely. And we've been using it for prediction analysis. So we've been able to look at trends and patterns from the past, and we can judge what will likely happen. So also, decision support systems will be incorporated with genomic data. So there will be personalized treatment, and there will be more genetic risk assessment than what we have now. Again, it will come back again to the ethical issues and legal guidelines. So governments will have to make policies, they will have to come with intervention to address issues around the use of clinical decision support system. And there will be global adoption of clinical decision support systems. As we know, during the COVID era, in fact, a lot of software manufacturers, the big players in the technological industry, they actually wanted a global approach to solving the health issues around COVID, and governments have been very sensitive about that. They don't want that for nationalistic reasons and security. These are the references we have used. If you are interested, you can always contact us at our center. Like I said, my email is on the first page, and I'll be happy to respond. Thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. A round of applause first, please. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for that interesting presentation. Let me just first ask in the room if there are any questions. If you're online and you want to put a question, I think raising your hand is quite a good method, not using the chat, because when your hand is raised, somehow a little window appears on screen, which is quite nice. Then we can see it. But I would like to ask you, first of all, I mean, one of the challenges that you faced was undertaking a review at a time of global panic, I suppose, and also the introduction of these decision support systems during the pandemic may have been rushed because things were being introduced to cope with a crisis. Did you come across any of the papers that actually were able to perform any form of evaluation of the outcome? I mean, you can't easily introduce decision support in a randomized, controlled kind of way. Did anybody that you came across among the authors try and evaluate whether they altered health outcomes, patient outcomes?
So none of the authors have been able to come out with outcomes. And actually, and that's this first phase in our research has led me to the second phase, which I am on now. So we found one of the trusts in Yorkshire, which actually implemented an electronic patient record that had a clinical decision support system module in it. And I've been working with them in the past 2 years to find out if it's actually done what they hope to achieve by implementing. We all know IT projects are tricky in the medical environment. So I've been there working from both a qualitative and a quantitative approach to find out if this system have actually done what was expected.
Well, that's actually really good news. That's such an important area. So I'm absolutely delighted to hear that the gap in the literature that you found has jump-started you into another career prospect to undertake that research. So well done for getting involved in that. I think it's really important. And we look forward one day, maybe in a future conference, hearing the outcome of that evaluation. So thank you very much for your presentation. Very enjoyable. Can I ask you now to stop sharing your screen? And thank you again for presenting. And now we shift to on-site presenters. You remember what they are. They're real humans who stand in front of you. So I would like to invite Esther to come up first and to take over. But I may ask Farah if one of you is able to do anything around technology so that because we've been seeing online presentations. Do you need to do, oh, you don't need to do anything. Wow, okay. Gosh, this is even more magical than I thought. Okay. Oh, well, I'm sorry, I hadn't realized it was so efficient. But you're very welcome. I think you probably are best holding the mic, because then the Zoom can hear you.
Hi, Zoom people, can you hear me? Yeah, so typical of a PhD thesis is chapter 2, which is literature review. And I want to show just a bit of my literature review. It's a whole literature review, and we don't have time for a whole literature review. I was given 20 minutes. So I'm going to show just a little bit. Then we can have a discussion about it. And it's supposed to change screens, but I don't know what's up. Great. What did you do? Okay. Right. So the fair data principles, these are principles that were conceived in 2014 by the Force 11 community. And they basically advocate for research management and data objects to be made findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And when we talk about research digital objects, we are talking about the data and the metadata. And somebody would ask, so what is metadata? Metadata is the data about the data. And so in this case, we should have data and metadata being persistent and unique, and to have persistent and unique identifiers. And that way we have it being findable, especially if the metadata is rich. And then to have it accessible, we have it having standardized protocols. And then whoever wants to access that data, whether it's a human or a machine, should be required to undergo authentication and authorization. Because in many cases, especially in the case of health data or health research data, this is sensitive and we don't expect that everybody is able to access it, especially in the wake of GDPR. And then the metadata should remain accessible even if the data is not accessible. So if you know about the research data lifecycle, there are cases where data is no longer accessible for various reasons, entropy, etc. But in that case, metadata, the data about the data, should still remain accessible. And for interoperability, we're talking about the metadata and the data being interoperable among various machines, even if the machines are heterogeneous in nature. And for reusable, we're talking about the metadata and data being licensed, which means the conditions under which this data may be reused by both humans and machines needs to be explicit and enriched with provenance and compliant to community standards. Now, these data principles were again born in 2014 and have been implemented across various scientific domains. However, in the health research domain, it's only recently that people began to think, since they're so successful in other scientific domains, why don't we implement them in the health research domain? And from where do we draw our experiences? So I am attached to the Medical Informatics Laboratory in Greifswald. And we draw experiences from various research endeavors, such as the FAIR Plus Fellowship, which I was part of as a fellow, combine NFDI for Health, which is the National Forschung for Data and Infrastructure in Germany, the Medicine Informatic Initiative, the Study of Health in Pomerania. Pomerania is the area up north between northwest Poland and northeast Poland, which has a little bit of issues with mortality and morbidity as compared to the rest of Germany. And the Diabetes Centrum, the Deutsches Zentrum for Diabetes Forschung, which is the German Center for Diabetes Research. That's where we draw our experiences from so far. So when you talk about fair assessment, or when you talk about the implementation of the fair data principles, there's basically two steps. First, we start with the fair assessment, in which we assess how fair is your data. And then after we assess how fair your data is, we're able to identify where are the gaps and what are the areas of improvement that we need to focus on for us to enable the data to be made fair, or the metadata to be made fair. And so a fair assessment is basically to what extent does the data or the metadata or the data repository comply with the fair data principles. And after that, we go through a process called verification. And in this case, we work on what are the gaps identified. And then after that, we end up with fairer data. Now I'm gonna have to say fairer because it's almost impossible, to be honest, to get 100% fair data. You only make it fairer. And that in itself is a fantastic goal. If you're fairer today than you were yesterday, that in itself is a goal to write about, to tell people about. And there are several steps that are involved in this. We talk about data annotation, metadata enrichment, standardization of data formats, so that we can make it machine readable, and development of unique and persistent identifiers, and ensuring the appropriate access mechanisms. So fair data stewardship enables transparency in research data management, and it increases the data use and reuse amongst both humans and machines. And this is especially important because this has shown to be critical in the wake of the data reproducibility crisis. And this is especially the case of publicly funded research. So we have a situation where data was collected today, and then 20 years later, we have to collect data again to perform research. But what if that data was maintained in a way that 20, 50 years later, we could still use that data that was collected 20 years ago? Because now it's costing us time, it's costing us money, it's costing us a lot. Yet this data was collected 20 years ago. And that's what we are trying to avoid, so that we can reproduce the results of an experiment 20, 50 years from now. And as I've said, this is the dream, and the dream is given to you for free. But the hustle, that's sold separately. So we conducted a scoping review. And as the presenter before me said, Zayed, we conducted this scoping review because, as I said, it was a new approach, especially in the field of health research. It's a relatively new approach. And so we wanted to see what's in the field so far. And we explored PubMed, Web of Science, and Google Scholar. And our inclusion criteria was if it's authored in English, if it's published between 2014 and 2020, and if it describes the benefit of the fair data principles implementation in health research. So what you see on that side is the publication in full, if you're interested in reading it. As I said, published between 2014 and 2020. 2014 because that's when the principles were conceived. So for this work, I'm going to focus particularly on how many articles identified in specific the benefits of verification. So we had 1561 articles and that we reviewed from the various databases. The studies that we included in the review were 34 based on our inclusion criteria, and 19 out of these 34 articles spoke to the benefits of verification in the health research domain. So benefits. One benefit is data sharing and publications. So now we're able to better share data. Machines can better interpret this data, which means it's better shareable. And it's better machine readable, which facilitates reuse and scalability. This is important because previously researchers have had issues with sharing their data But because of verification and in the wake of verification, in not only health data, but in various scientific domains, now there's been the creation of tools that lighten the burden of sharing and publishing interoperable and reusable data and metadata. But still there's the question, we can share data, that's wonderful. And now we have more publications because researchers are better able to access data, but we have rare diseases. And can rare disease registries be fair and data privacy compliant, especially in the wake of GDPR implementation? And that remains an interesting area of further research. For those of you who are not so familiar with rare diseases, we're talking about diseases that affect about, well, there are various definitions, but in Europe, it's about 1 in 10,000 people. And that qualifies as a rare disease. And these are diseases that are interesting for research because finding the therapeutic regimen for rare diseases requires a lot of work, a lot of research. And if we can get data about rare diseases, there are very few people, and we want that data so that everybody else who happens to be a victim or need that therapy 20 years, 50 years from now can get access to information and can be better treated and can have better patient outcomes. Another benefit is new findings and treatments. So now we have a wider access to research data. We're not collecting it from scratch. And now we have standardized metadata templates, which allows wider data provision for data sharing. And because now there's rich metadata, we're able to better find this data. And we reduce the time spent collecting and searching for already available data. This is especially important for educational purposes. We're also talking about clinical case reports. Enriched with rich metadata enables researchers to explore disease progression and therapies for better health outcomes. So fair data and fair metadata has also extended to fair repositories or fair databases where you maintain your data. And now when we have fair repositories, that, for example, will require your data, for you to store your data there, it will be required that you go through a process of data annotation, of metadata enrichment, of semantic enrichment. And this has enabled collaborative research, which has also played a big part in improvement of patient care and outcomes. Verification of data is, again, as I said, it involves quite a hassle, but it's absolutely worth the investment for today and for tomorrow. But it has been shown from the research that we did that it is easier and more efficient, much more budget friendly to simultaneously digitize and standardize data bit by bit, to do it in bulk than to do it bit by bit over a period of time, iteratively, for purposes of time and cost. The short-term impact is improved data findability. We have better access to data for analytics and improved data access. And as I said, the reusability eliminates the need for new data collection. Retrospective verification is a hassle. It would be better if we thought verification from the time we collect data and think about it prospectively than to do it retrospectively. I'm involved in a project right now where I am verifying data from 20 years ago. It means that, and it's laboratory data, so it means I ask the lab many questions. What does this mean? What does this mean? And why is it like this? And the lab people tell me, we don't know. We were not in the lab 20 years ago. And what does that mean for me? Much more work and many unanswered questions. So it requires a lot of time retrospectively. It is cost intensive. But the good thing is that as verification is gaining momentum, there are more and more tools that are becoming available for simpler verification. And that means that the upfront investment may decrease as the tools improve. I have a feeling Professor Chaltikan is coming to say that time's up. Okay. So follow-up work, one of the reasons we carried out this, in fact, the main reason we carried out this scoping review was because we wanted to get to know what can we do prospectively better based on the results of our scoping review. Right now, we are working towards a structured verification workflow for the core data set of the Diabetes Research Center in Germany. And this core data set is used for diabetes research nationally. And we're also working towards the verification of the metadata schema for the NFDI for health, because we have seen that indeed it is beneficial to have fair data. And our experience so far in this is that we need a shopping list, right? So before you go to the supermarket, before you start this process, you probably should have a shopping list. And your shopping list should include an openness and willingness to accept that it is gradual. And not only is it gradual, but it's also iterative. So you will be fairer today than you were yesterday, but that means that tomorrow you need to come back and put in more effort with the new data that you've got to keep doing this, to keep up your verification efforts. We also need collaboration from the various stakeholders. As I said earlier, I am working on verification with various people, and that means that I need them to collaborate. I have questions about their data. They have questions about why do we need to do this in the first place? And that's a question that you're going to get from many scientists as you embark on their verification safari. Financial support and a shift in organizational culture and workflows of research institutions. As I said, it would be better if we did this prospectively instead of retrospectively. But what does that include? It includes that every time we collect data, we think about verification. But does the current workflow in many research institutions consider verification of this data? Unfortunately, not. And so that requires that we think about our culture in terms of organization in a different manner and probably design it differently with verification in consideration. Most resources are about 50% fair, and getting to 70% is really, really going to be demanding. It's a demanding endeavor. And truth is, if you talk to scientists across the board, you'll hear them say, but my work is fair. It's findable on the internet. Yes, it is as a PDF. That's not machine operable. It's not machine readable. And you know, that for them, it's accessible. If you go on the internet, you click on it, you'll find it. Not really. Where is the metadata? How do I know how to reuse this data? Am I allowed to reuse this data? Or will you sue me after that? Those are so they really overestimate how fair their data is. And that means that we need to educate scientists about this journey. We need to educate scientists on what exactly this means and support them in the verification process and, you know, show them why it would be beneficial to even start this safari. So our areas of future research. Currently, we're working on the verification of the HIOH, which is the Helmholtz Institute for One Health, and they are involved in veterinary science and human health and environmental health. And so we're looking into verifying the data sets that is in there, also the core data set of the Medicine Informatic Initiative. We're also looking to develop a simple checklist for verification. As we said, we need to educate scientists, but we don't want to give you don't want to give it to scientists in form of very complicated stuff. You want to make it as simple as possible for them, or else nobody's going to do this. People already have a lot of work to do. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible for them. And we're also looking into, are commonly used biomedical ontologies fair? And that's what we want to research on next. My battery is running low. Oh no. Okay. So we recommend that key performance indicators be established to show how exactly has the verification benefited you in your context. We know it in general, but how has it benefited you in your particular research institution or organization? And we hope that this will motivate related stakeholders to embark on this journey. So my name is Esther Inau. Please, let's collaborate. That's where to find me. All right. Great. Thanks.
That was a lovely presentation. I love your final word, fairyland. I've never seen that before, and I think we should all remember that. That's a lovely word. Don't run away. Any questions?
A small question thank you very much for the report. Question is, you have raw data. Maybe it consists with false information, with false material. I transfer this data to the fair technology and I receive new data with false information. Yes or no? Yes. So nothing changed. Be complicated. Exactly. Absolutely. So first of all, must be cleaning, data processing, and then. But second question: when finish this data processing, and then transfer to the fair technology? A question for you. Yeah. Typical, of course, but other. Particularly agree with you. Yes. Кто мне поможет? Да. No? Everything okay? Computer?
So I think
Yes, I think everything.
no, it's working, but I just want to say, Professor Mintzer, you don't really need an introduction to DigiHealth Day. You are a famous member of this faculty, a famous presenter. I remember listening to your excellent talks last year. So thank you for coming to us. And I mean, I'm intrigued by your title. I'm not sure what you mean, but I guess then I have to listen to your talk.
Thanks. While transfer going some words about report. Few days we had opportunity to listen to very interesting reports. But for me, I was very astonished. Only some report touch problem with data. But data, it's a basic question for us. No data, no technology. But we propose artificial intellectual technology, we propose telemedicine technology. Nobody investigate problem with data. But we have data discrimination, data balance, data symmetry. What we must do? And even technology, telemedicine technology, it seems that very simple technology. Why? You have only 3 persons. We have only 3 persons. Patient, treatment doctor and expert who give some recommendation. Nothing more, only 3. But we have problem, so much problem that for me, right now, technology of telemedicine is fantastic technology because we haven't any decision. We propose some decision, but we haven't any proof for the good technology. Right now, all our speech about telemedicine, it's only blah blah. I tried to show you what the telemedical consultation right now don't work. Okay, is it possible? So the rapid appearance, the diagnostic technology bring about new dilemma. The emergence of challenges decision maker caused by inaccuracy in patient treatment procedure. This procedure become more versatility when we advent of telemedicine technology. Diagnostic hurdles such as data discrimination, information asymmetry, missed opportunity for early diagnosis, and common widespread and resource training. Unfortunately, this issue received little attention. Main definition. First of all, we talk about telemedicine. Its official definition too long for, but mostly for this definition. Provision of healthcare services for any healthcare specialist in situation where distance is a critical factor. Nothing more. Then we have blah, 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 but for us, important thing, where distance is critical factor. But first of all, data discrimination. What does mean data discrimination? Now, mostly more of investigators know this position. Also referred to as algorithmic discrimination. Phenomena manifest when predefined data types or data source experience disparate treatment, either intentionally or unintentionally, in comparison to others. What does mean? We got clinical data. What I do as doctor. Such data for me seems very important. I use them. Another no. Why? It's my opinion. In my opinion, yet I divide in other person. What's the reason? 90% of doctors use this technology. We choose only information what for me seems important. It's a mistake. When we provide artificial intelligence and use history of patient history, the same in history, I wrote information what seemed to me very important. It's a mistake. For doctor, it's not so important. But when I provide deep learning for artificial intelligence, all my mistakes going to the system with artificial intelligence. And then we have semantic problem. And then next, just a second. Informational asymmetry. When we have 3 persons in telemedicine procedure, part information understand and know doctor who treat. Part information keep doctor what give consulting service. Part information keep patient. Where is the common information for 3 parts of this system? Calculation of this common information that not more than 40–50%. It's a strange. But we talk about a decision maker in telemedicine. We must provide diagnostic, prognosis, choose treatment, but we haven't any information. It's only 2%. Right now, we're going to another problem. Six technology should pay attention. Data discrimination are especially great. It's molecular diagnostic, image analysis, it's robotics, it's information management, artificial intelligence. It's the most modern technology. Each of these technology now has other problem to use information what we give this system. Totally, it's a problem. Information asymmetry at all. Discrimination, yes. Massive diagnostic opportunity. Missed diagnostic opportunity. Evaluation of safety. Utilization anamnestic information. Operational image processing. The 7th problem. It's only a small part. Research objective, our research objective. To explore the potential conceptualization telemedical care, interplay or two vectors, patient's condition vector and technology readiness. Really, when we realize telemedicine technology, first of all, I need the doctor would know perfect everything. It's first part of problem. Of course, I need to have a good information about patient. Then I need a technological readiness of this telemedia conference. Additional goal of the study was to determine the role anamnestic data, the presence of state condition in dynamic pathological process, in particular patient stable connection symptom and form of correlation galaxies. I explained this thesis. Absolutely sure that if one time study patients, it's a practically full information. Must be previous information and next, like monitorizing problem. If me, like expert, give a decision, it's absolutely not enough data what the doctor who provide treatment for me. For me, it's impossible to make decision. I need data during monitoring process, obligatory. It must be low, but it, every protocol what I know in different country, nobody need protocol of monitoring. Only one time investigation. Absolutely enough. The last goal of the study to justify a strategy for secure and efficient medical data management system in telemedicine technology to ensure effective diagnosis and prognosis. This part much more investigated about guarantee of personal data, keep personal data. It's the simplest part of it. Second, very hard problem, and first, of course, too. Next, very hard position that in our school we divide trajectory of patient condition into three phases: pre-transition, clinical transitional, and post-transitional. Why? Because for what doctor who treat patient need my consulting decision. If everything clear, I absolutely not needed. But example, we have some risk factor. So first of all, I ask expert, give me recommendation about risk. So it's a pre-transition phase. I understand what I must do. I have algorithm for this situation. When we have a critical transitional phase, I haven't any good algorithm. Why? Because I haven't previous information. I have not. If I have not such information, for me to make decision practically impossible. We forgot about this. What's the phase what we realize telemedical consultation? Pre-transition, no problem. Critical, it's a problem. Post-transition phase, the same. It's a good position for expert. No problem. We have special algorithm. Then, this context, telemedical consultation identifies such a pre-transitional state, can afford the requisite time frame for intervention, thereby impinging at last impending adverse ramification, onset of complication, exacerbation of the disease, and so on. Telemedical two vectors, I told about this one, but I would like to stop about phenomena, diagnostic error and missed opportunities. It's the next hard problem in telemedical situation, and data discrimination among the other. Data discrimination in diagnostic procedures. It's very interesting data from American Journal of Pediatry. For me, I was absolutely astonished when appeared the data. Just a second, I show, and then we return back. Elevated blood pressure, investigate using telemedicine technology. Mistake, 62%, only arterial pressure, nothing more. But if we complicate our task, and not only arterial pressure, but diagnosis, how many diagnostic errors we can do? A lot of. Everything connected with data. Return back. What is for us the most important thing? Maybe this will say. It's a big report. Was many times and certain data group receive excessive attention. first of all, intentional misconduct. So, what does mean? It's the training data encompass based on the discriminatory instances. The system will perceive them as valid and replace the bias in its output. Problem with bias in telemedical consult service, it's a big. Okay. Next question is definition of norm and not norm. If we make procedure in the clinic to describe norm position patient, it's possible. But I have only limited time to say it's a norm. It's not a norm. I have minimum information. I don't know exactly validity this information. Patient and doctor who treatment ask me concrete decision. Practically, to do this, absolutely impossible. Error by omission, the new problem right now. What does it mean, omission our opportunities? It means that I have opportunity to ask doctor or to use some data, but never use. Why? It's my opinion. So I don't use data what I have. As a result, we have error omission opportunities. Some words about routine telemedicine challenges. Data security and interoperability. You know these challenges. Second challenge arise from the need to secure and enable interoperable patient examination data, particularly when multiple healthcare organizers are engaged in telemedicine consultation simultaneously. Many problems we have with data management, especially with you have time? Yeah. 2 minutes. Okay. It's 3 slides, not more. So first of all, right now we need provide transdisciplinary approach in telemedicine. Why? Because doctor, genetic, it's maybe a specialist in informational technology. It's maybe common pathologist and so on. So we need a transdisciplinary approach. If we haven't any protocol to realize such approach. The last problem is semantic problem, biological and medical semiotics. So it's a language problem. Of course, we have in English some vocabulary. It's nomad, it's loin, and so on. But it's only in English country. Another country has not. Right now in Ukraine, in another country, For this, we haven't any document would allow us to decide such problem. It's a problem right now. So in conclusion, the first conclusion, telemedical consultation necessary and robust realism when we use medical data and management system. This system should enable both the consultant and the attending physician and process data, retain validation data for ensuring patient-specific recommendation, and augment the global telemedicine framework with decision-making explored. Second conclusion, the integration of big data analytics is poised on enhance the prediction or identification, disease diagnosis, and prognosis. Third, scaling the real-time communicator with each patient or multi-factor data processing is achievable through artificial intelligence. It's maybe, but semantic. Last slide. Fourth conclusion. Imperative during the telemedicine consultation to consider not only the static, very important conclusion, static indicator on the patient condition, but also the baseline data, stable condition indicator, and personalized correlation galaxies and correlation portrait at their own definition. The last conclusion, a coherent theory of biosemiotics must be created. No such theory, no telemedical consultation. Thank you very much for your attention.